Welcome to a brand new edition of the Untold. This is the show where we interview great individuals. I'm your host, Abdullah AlHendyani. I'm with my co-host,
Lujain AlAtheri, and today we have with us Dr. Jawaher AlBader, who is an art educator and artist, and someone who creates community spaces for people for art, which I think is amazing.
It is. Her field is very niche, and we were reading about her brief. It was so interesting to me. It was so, curiosity driven that I feel so anxious and nervous to talk to her. Because, for me personally, talking with people who have PhD, I always feel a lot of nerves.
Really? I think I don't feel the same way because my mom has a PhD as well.
Well, there you go.
And also she's an artist, so I can relate to this field quite well.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to learn a lot from Dr. Jawaher, and I'm curious to see what she has to tell us today.
Yeah, and so for me to get rid of those nerves, we are going to take a very quick break and we'll come right back after this one. And we are back with Dr. Jawaher AlBader, and I want to first welcome you on the Untold.
Thank you so much, Abdullah and Lujain, for having me here with you.
It's so wonderful to have you. Could you tell us what first drew you to a career in art education?
Actually, it was the art that pulled me into the art education. As a child growing up in Kuwait, I had definitely a learning disability that I would not be able to understand what the teacher would tell me by listening to it. So I would come home and I would replay the lesson visually. So this was the beginning of my journey where I would draw any opportunity I had to be visual, to draw, to express myself visually was art. And art was always my safe space. It was the only way that I was able to process was through art. There was too much going on in classrooms. There was bullying. It was too much. I hated school. So art was like a place where it was safe for me.
And I do love how you emphasize the idea of having a safe environment, for art. And I want to tackle that point further. Creating a safe space is important to you. So talk us through that. What's the importance of having a safe space for art?
Well, having a safe space makes it easier for people to create, for people to really listen to their inner voice and to discover who they are without any kind of pressure. I created a space that was able to attract people to have these kind of spaces, and it's a space where people would move out of their isolation and be able to produce whatever it is that they want in a place where it is okay. And not to be judged, not to be ridiculed, to create with a complete authenticity.
That was beautifully said. And actually, I think in the modern day, it's becoming more and more knowledgeable that education isn't a one-size-fits for all. Some people, as you, learn better visually, some through hearing. For me personally, I learn better when I read things and write them down. So the school system, I think, has some ways to go. So I think it's wonderful that you've actually applied this yourself and are using your own platform to educate people through art. What is a misconception people have about art education?
So a misconception specifically about art that is useless. It's all about making pretty pictures. In the West as well as in our location in the world. The first classes to be chopped off when there's no funding, it's the art. And art is actually the place where complete total integration happens for people. So you do not have to do art to be an artist. You do art to be a surgeon or an engineer. Art is important to integrate a whole person in the experiences that you do. Art provides you with critical thinking, problem solving. You are able to have more resilience. You develop your emotional intelligence through art. You're able to train your mind to see multiple dimensions, and you would be okay with ambiguity.
What misconceptions would you say people have about art and art education?
Well, art is always seen as an extra. Art is always, even in businesses, it's like, oh, you're teaching art, you don't need a rukhsa. You know, it's not something that is considered a real learning. But in my opinion, art is probably the only tool where every kind of learning could be absorbed by people. It's one thing that all lessons could be taught through art. Everything could be taught through art. So it's not a side dish. It's a main dish.
I do agree. My mom was an artist. So growing up, I was always surrounded by art and painting. Whenever we traveled, I would be taken to museums to look at different artworks, overall different histories. And I think that really helped shape my worldview and how I approach things. So I think it does benefit people to be able to explore the medium, whether just observing it and enjoying it or doing it themselves. Would you say that your academic journey has helped shape the view of your philosophy towards your workshops and how you teach art to people?
There's two parts, the academic part and the art part. The academic part has more structure, is more theory driven. You need to prove something. Actually, even my academic part, I negotiated it so that it became a visual experience. My PhD is one of the first visual ethnographies that were made in a time where you don't have to, it's not common to use imagery to tell your story as a PhD candidate. So I even embedded the art in my academic piece. And the art part is the part where it is complete embodiment. It's like when you are in your body in the moment, and the academic part is the head. So it's a combination, it's a balance between the two.
Yeah, I do want to derail this interview a little bit to talk about your PhD, because it's not a lot of, we don't have a lot of PhD candidates on the show. So I want to ask you about, your decision to pursue PhD in a field, like you said, it's very niche, it's very, it's very unique. So what were the key moments in deciding to pursue this kind of field?
So I guess for me, everything that I've done was always art as the forefront.
Yeah.
And since at that time there wasn't much art PhDs, there was an art education PhDs, and at the time I had two of my youngest daughters, so most of my experiments were on my children. So since they're born, it's like what they did with their food, was art. So it's like how they related to themselves while making, what words they created. So all my first year experiments was on Noor, specifically my eldest. So for me it was a natural progression from art to art educator, and I love providing the space, the safe space for people to be themselves. It's like through art, through just being, and through presenting or making things without being judged, and reminding people that it's never the product. It's really about the process and what you experience while creating the product.
That's so funny, actually. I relate to your daughter because my mother used me as well in a lot of her art pieces.
Okay.
I would always have to pose for things, or she'd be like, I'm inspired by this. She'd bring me and my brother, my cousin sometimes, just to do different things because it would help with her own art. And it was very fun, but as a child, you're not thinking too much about it. So I relate with your daughter quite a lot on
I'll
this
connect
front.
the two of you.
Please do. We can rehash this about growing up. But speaking of how you went from an artist to an art educator, was there a moment that taught you that this was the right path for you?
Being an art educator?
Yes, the transition.
Well, it was extremely lonely being an artist in Kuwait in the 90s. You had the artists who were educated, yes, in London, in Egypt, in Lebanon, but there wasn't a community for artists. It was always like niches. Like I felt very lonely and alone, and I feel like creating the studio was my way of bringing people to the level or the safety of producing work that we were able to share and interact. And next week we're going to have a beautiful show of a lot of these pieces that were created communally by many people. So,
And do you find your approach to art and the way you tackle art pieces is different in a way after you understand art at such a intricate kind of level? Because PhD requires a lot of research, a lot of knowledge. So, or are you still that same artist before going to all of this, the same touch with the same skills, the same amount of ideas? Now you just know how to hone them better.
well, actually, the PhD was the worst thing for my
Oh.
art. It was actually also teaching full-time in Kuwait University was amazing for the students. It was very rewarding, but I did lose myself, and this is why I'm. It's on pause, the teaching in the university, where I'm really working on myself and cultivating my art practice. And it's very important to cultivate your art practice if you're teaching art or if you're an art educator.
That makes sense because they tell you to do what you love, but you also don't want what you love to become your job and something you have to do.
Yeah.
That can ruin the love or joy of it sometimes. And going back to what you said about creating community spaces, which is something I want to commend you on, actually. It's wonderful that you did that. 'Cause I think a lot of people don't know where to go when they want to create or meet like-minded people. Did you face any resistance or challenges in creating this space?
It's actually, the space was opened up because of the great need and desire for that space. It happened organically, and it was extremely rewarding to see people open up and become part of this larger community.
So speaking of larger communities in the art space, are there some key elements that you notice within these kind of groups, or how do you, manage to bring the best in them once they feel safe in those kind of environments? Like, do you see a difference in their art pieces, their difference in their personalities? Like, just talk about the intricate, details of people who go into these safe spaces.
Well, specifically, what we do is there's no. Usually, art spaces want an outcome. Like everybody draw an apple, and every single person would draw an apple. In my way of teaching, it's connecting to each student and individualizing the teaching. So I wouldn't really, like, specifically, for example, in the university, I would the third of the semester, I would be basically trying to figure out the students, and then after I figured out every student, I would kind of push them into different directions. It doesn't matter if I have 20 or I have 30. It has to be connected to the students themselves, and making a specific program for that group. So what's interesting is that it's not only what they draw, it's how they draw it. Like yesterday, I had a 6-year-olds, and we were supposed to paint the flowers. So one student, suddenly, she went to the bathroom and she brought the تكرمون toilet paper, empty toilet paper. قالت لي خلص toilet paper, and she decided to put it on the table and start painting it, and she wanted to create a tiger. And I'll show you a picture of it. It's such a gorgeous tiger that she created. But if she didn't have that opportunity to feel safe enough to spend pour half a gallon of غرة of Elmer's glue and create this little 3D thing, we wouldn't have seen. So it's, you create whatever you have an impulse to create. It doesn't even have to be a painting. The other girl, Khadija, made a robot from boxes that she saw in the corner, and it's a 2-hour session. So she wanted to take it home, so she took it home to complete the assignment. So it's, you can do anything. There's no limit. You just have to figure out where you want to go, and I am there to support them in that journey.
That's really beautiful, and I think that's something really special about children. Their creative instinct hasn't been corrupted, I guess, by life. So they'll just do things on impulse. They'll decide, I don't want to draw a flower. I want to do a tiger. I want to do this in different colors. So I do love that. I think also the fact that you're there to guide them and help them develop their creativity is a really beautiful thing.
Well, I'm not guiding them. I'm undoing what's happening in schools. I'm just giving them that safety that it's okay. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing. You can do your thing. And that's what it is, giving them freedom that, okay, it's not the 45-minute session that you have in school. This is a 2-hour session where you do have freedom to flip the class into whatever way you need.
Yeah. I think that's a very beautiful note to stop on before we go on a break, is that, making these students feel like they can say whatever they want through their art pieces. And with that being said, we are going to go on a very quick break. We'll come right back after this one.
Welcome back from the break. Dr. Jawaher, we were talking about how children find ways to express themselves in your workshops and that you teach them how to follow their creative vision. And sometimes it's delightful, such as the girls you mentioned with the tiger. But I'm sure that sometimes there are setbacks or challenges. Could you tell us about them?
Yes, I had a workshop. It was a one-day workshop, and I had a group of probably 8. The majority were boys, feisty boys, and myself in the studio with the energy of the studio, where it's like nurturing, generous. It was insane.
Oh, chaos.
There was chaos. And so I had to actually really try to be connected and see how I can flip it around. And indeed, we were able to flip it after a timeout and after telling them all the rules and the boundaries of the studio, because there are some boundaries that they are not supposed to cross, and respecting these boundaries. And we turned it into a performance. So they were creating, because they had so much energy, so we turned it into performance where we would draw each child as he's performing. So it was kind of moving it, taking their energy out, and then transforming it into a positive outcome.
And speaking of, troublesome kind of student, how do you differentiate between what kind of student that walks into your workshop, or as an educator, like how do you know your exact approach to this kind of student, in comparison to this kind of student? Like, how do you decide what kind of techniques you're going to use, what kind of rules you're going to set, what kind of, art you're going to be telling them to, expand upon? Like, what is the decision process there?
Well, it's like I was saying, it's a relationship that develops, and usually it takes around 3 weeks. If I'm teaching in the university, like a third of the whole semester would be just understanding them through skill exercises or little challenges that I would give them. But it will be extremely obvious to me from the outcome that comes out is what their strengths, and I would maximize their strength, and I would use their strength to actually for them to excel and to learn the lesson their way. So each person will learn the lesson that needs to be learned, but in their own individualized way.
How did your experiences lead you to figure out the right way to approach things?
That's the superpower that I think the most important part of my teaching, and that's probably the thing that is special for me, is in the specific session, I would be completely immersed and completely present with the students, and I would turn into a 3-year-old and I would actually model a lot of the stuff myself. So my excitement and my presence would be so contagious that you would see the engagement, and then each person would volunteer their strength and volunteer their interest. So I guess that's how it is. It's just being really there, listening to the students, enjoying it. It's like really enjoying it and being present and one with them, the environment, and the work of art that we're creating.
And is that a recent development, or is that something you've always approached education, specifically art education, as, or is it something you've gained through experiences throughout the years?
Well, I think even for me, even though I was isolated, and for me, I did art in isolation in the beginning of my life. The only way I would relate to anybody was through drawing them,
Oh,
or
okay.
teaching my cousins. So art was the way I connected with everyone.
It's how you express yourself.
How I navigate and negotiate the world. It's I guess I'm a art nerd, maybe. I don't know what you would call it, but it's the only way I know how, and I held on to it and I let it lead my way.
Looking back on your teaching or artistic journey, was there a specific milestone or accomplishment that really defined who you are or made you believe that, yes, this is the moment?
Yes, actually, in 2022, I received an award for art and design education from my alma mater, Rhode Island School of Design.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
To me, that was like, okay, there's something positive in my process, in my what I'm doing. So that gave me confidence. And also another accomplishment is establishing the printmaking conference that happens once a year, and it's one of a kind in the area. It's called طباعة conference. And why printmaking? Because printmaking, anybody can print. مثل ratatouille, anybody can be an artist, a chef. That's I would say that's accomplishments.
That's a really amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, it's honestly amazing. And speaking of accomplishments, you've been educating people throughout the years, which is, by itself an accomplishment. So I do want to ask you because a lot of teachers say we also learn from the students and we change throughout the years. So has that journey affected you as well, or talk us through all of that?
So the work that they're doing is changing. So I had to learn to adapt and to change my ways for the students. It's not necessarily a good way. For example, the last class that I taught wanted everything to be YouTube links for them to see how they would create the skills. But this is something that I did do it. I did send them YouTube links. But it's important to experience art one-to-one. It's important to learn from someone physically doing. So I'm learning new techniques from my own students, just as they need to learn new techniques from myself or from other artists.
That's amazing. I love how art works in that manner, that you can learn and inspire others at the same time and vice versa. And something I do want to ask you, considering your work as an academic, what surprises people when they hear about your hands-on approach in the art studio? For instance, you mentioned earlier how you got a bunch of rowdy boys to do a performance, and that allowed them to follow the art in a more constructive manner. So what would surprise people about you?
I think it's the groundedness, the playfulness, that piece that does not really I never really fit in as an academic, honestly. I always would find a way out. Yes, I am, grounded in all the theory, structure, but it kind of starts suffocating you if you're someone who wants to produce and create and be more playful. You need to be more playful with colors, with shapes when you're involved in art.
And speaking of being involved with art, what kind of myths about art education that you'd like to correct now, for the record on the Untold?
You do not have to be talented to be an artist. Again, ratatouille. Anybody could be involved in art. All you need is to just be present and be forgiving with yourself. It's okay to make mistakes, and there's no product that needs to look a certain way. We all experience the world differently. All these artists produced art and pieces that are completely different from each other. So it's important to realize that it's a matter of just being present and being yourself and taking risks. And one of the most important experiences that happened a couple of months ago and a couple of weeks ago, we worked with youth that were physically and some of them mentally disabled with the support of collaborations. And we created beautiful pieces that we're going to exhibit next week.
Mashallah.
And it didn't, there was no limitations. You had people that had problems physically, but they were supported by others who were more physically able, but they needed that kind of connection. So creating art that is inclusive really takes us to a better state as a community and as a society as a whole. It's like a microcosm of society.
So looking back on this artistic journey, do you have any advice for people or tips who are maybe starting out in the field of art or art education? What would you say to them?
So in today's world, there's a plethora of information. There's information visual. We're bombarded with artificial intelligent output. My advice is to become the best authentic listener, the best version of yourself as a listener. Everybody is consuming, but not enough people are actually listening to themselves, to their environment, in a more embodied, connected way. So this is something that's very important, to be more of a listener, so that you could really reflect on your environment like our ancestors did in the caves, and ancestors did in multiple generations.
Yeah. Honestly, this highlights something that I remember from one of my favorite professors. She said that a lot of people hear, but they don't listen. I think that there's a lot of nuance and a lot of, heavy kind of, understanding between those two words. People are hearing, they're not listening. And especially relates to younger kids, right? To children, because they're more accessible to being influenced by whatever you say. So I do commend you for taking that position and for taking that role of, listening to them, giving them a platform, giving them a very safe space to do what they love.
Thank you. And I think more and more people are becoming more aware, and hopefully we'll see the youth really blooming like they should be doing.
I hope so. And I want to thank you for joining us today. It was so wonderful to have you.
Thank you. It was wonderful to be here, Abdullah and Lujain.
It was so wonderful to have you. And thank you so much for that advice and for creating such a beautiful space for people to be creative and explore themselves and their identities and be their authentic self, as you were saying previously. Taking a short break, stay tuned.
Thank you very much for sitting with us on today's edition of The Untold. That was it from us. What do you say, Lujain?
Honestly, I loved talking to her. She had some very interesting insights in how the creative process works and how sometimes you don't have to follow education in the exact path, but to follow what's inside people and let that come out and express themselves.
Very well said. Thank you for that. And thank you, dear viewers, for sitting with us. But that's wrap for today's episode of The Untold. Until the next one, goodbye for now.
Goodbye and see you next time.